When it comes to their colors, male peacocks have got to be the most show-offy birds on the planet. Their iridescent feathers can display a whole spectrum of colors, and they can even change color as they grow older. But what's going on behind the scenes that makes this possible? That's 1 minute. Let's do this. First, let's look at how we get all these different colors from a single bird. As with many animals, a peacock's coloration comes down to 2 main factors: the structure of their feathers and the way they reflect light. The different colors we see in a peacock's tail aren't due to different pigments. Instead, they come from the same guanine-based pigment called melanin. But because peacocks have so much melanin in their feathers, it can only reflect certain wavelengths of light, specifically those in the ultraviolet and blue parts of the spectrum. Depending on how the light hits the feather, you might see blues, purples, pinks, or even golds. And when light hits the tips of the feather at just the right angle, you see an achromatic color called white. Now it turns out that a peacock's feather also acts like a diffraction grating, which is a tool that uses a surface with lots of microscopic grooves to separate light into its different wavelengths. So you can think of the peacock's feather as having 2 layers: the top, which reflects certain colors depending on the angle of the light, and the second, which separates the colors a bit more. Together, these 2 layers produce the dazzling array of colors we associate with peacocks. But why are some peacocks green and others more red? Well, it turns out that the color we see in a peacock's tail isn't just dependent on their feather structure, but also on the angle the feathers are tilted relative to their surroundings. This is because if the background behind the peacock is the same color as its feathers, the feathers will blend in and be difficult to see. So as a peacock grows up, its feathers change color to make sure that it always stands out against whatever background it's on. In other words, peacocks don't actually change color. They just change how they reflect light. That's why younger peacocks, who usually have darker, more cryptic plumage, tend to be browner or greener. As they age and their feathers become brighter, they start to look more red. Now you might be wondering why peacocks have evolved to change color in this way rather than, say, changing the structure of their feathers instead of relying on how old they are. It's likely related to sexual selection. Since peacocks spend most of their time on the ground, having a cryptic coloration as a juvenile helps them hide from predators while they still developing their adult feathers. But once they reach maturity, peacocks spend more time in trees where there's less background clutter, so it makes sense for them to evolve a display of bright colors to attract mates. After all, if you're going to show off, you got to do it when you're fully grown, and by relying on their age to dictate what colors they display. Peacocks ensure that every individual has an equally dazzling display, which may help keep the species as a whole looking their best. And since we've been talking about peacocks and their beautiful colors, I want to talk about a company whose mission is to empower everyone to experience the joy of making art.